Hello, and welcome to the show Gold Squadron Gays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and we did decide, because we're recording these episodes in batches, we did decide over the break that this was my favorite episode of Tales of the Jedi that's about to come up, but it's not the one I think is the best.
Oh, interesting.
That's
okay.
our differentiation.
That's fair.
So just launched right into that, apropos of nothing. If anyone has clicked on this episode, and this is the first one you've ever listened to, which if it is, welcome. We are covering Tales of the Jedi in between Bad Batch and Mandalorian. Or no, I almost said Bad Batch and Mandalorian. We did have like a 25-minute meeting this morning talking about nothing but the Bad Batch and Mandalorian scheduling. In between Andor and the Bad Batch, we are taking Tales of the Jedi a little slower. We didn't want to just cram it all into one episode like we did with Vision Season 1. Bradley, I don't think either you or I was happy with doing it that way.
Yeah, you know what? And spoilers for the future. I just felt like we didn't do Visions justice enough. So theoretically, whenever season 2 comes out, we will go back and do season 1 beforehand. I really just want to give it its due, like we're doing with these episodes for Tales of the Jedi, because I feel like just giving him just one 30-minute episode is enough for me. Like, we don't need to go like 2 hours to talk about each Visions episode or each Tales of the Jedi episode.
Which, to be clear, we could do.
We just don't need to.
We don't need to.
But I also don't feel like a 1 hour long episode where we talk about every single thing is enough. So I'd like to split it up just a little bit, just to kind of give each one a little bit more time.
Yeah, we're constantly, one thing we do with Gold Squadron is that we're constantly talking about the show. We're constantly evaluating the show. What do we think worked? What do we think didn't work? What feedback are we getting at our socials? How can we make it like a really good show and make sure that we're keeping up with the Star Wars releases while at the same time making sure we sort of give everything its due. Because we didn't decide to do a chronological watch and therefore always have our schedule beautifully planned out ahead of us. No, in our infinite wisdom, we decided to do current events. And when the episode schedule released for Bad Batch this morning, I briefly considered whiskey for breakfast, or rather whiskey for lunch, because breakfast had already passed, but I refrained, but man, it was tempting. So today we're going to be talking about Tales of the Jedi Episode 2, which is called Justice.
In this episode, 2 Jedi are dispatched to resolve a hostage situation on a distant planet where tensions are running high.
Bradley, I'm gonna let you start. I started the last one. What did you like this episode?
Not initially. I didn't like the darkness of it. I don't mean dark as in like the theme was dark. Like, I literally mean like the color palette of the episode was very gray compared to the previous episode, which was very colorful and green and had a lot of foliage and animals and things and blue skies and stuff. This one was very dark and kind of dreary. Now, to be fair, this is not it's not supposed to be a very bright, colorful episode because it's supposed to be a very intense, kind of serious episode. So I'll give it that. However, I did like it because I really, really like these Dooku episodes. I feel like they are the best part of the show as a whole. This one just began the journey of Dooku for me, and it's stuff that we don't get to see with Dooku because we don't know anything about Dooku. If you just watch the movies or you just watch the regular TV show, you know nothing about Dooku.
Dooku Jedi Lost by Kevin Scott, an audio drama which also features Asajj Ventress, Bradley's favorite character.
Which I will end up reading at some point. It's on my wish list, but I have obviously other priorities that take place. So it's on the list. I'm going to watch it or listen to it at some point. But I really like young Dooku in general. I think that is some of the coolest stuff that we get to see in this show is Dooku. Now, I want to ask you, before you tell me your opinions on the episode, did you like the way that they formatted these episodes, where it was the Ahsoka Tano episode first, the 3 Dooku episodes, and then the 2 Ahsoka episodes? Does that make sense to you?
No. No, I did
Okay.
not. And
Okay. Thank
and
you.
here's why. Because it kind of felt like they wanted to do a chronological order,
Yeah.
but they got it wrong.
They got it wrong. They
They
fucked
got
up.
it wrong. The Ahsoka episode, I believe, should be either after this one or after the next one,
Right.
before the Phantom Menace. It should be either before the Phantom Menace. Yeah, let me mentally do the timeline. So, Phantom Menace is what, 9 years prior to Attack the Clones? So
Sure.
the Ahsoka being born episode, it should be in between episodes 2 and 3 of Dooku.
Right. They needed to swap the first and the second episode.
Yeah. Well, no, they needed to put life in. If they wanted to do sheer chronological, should have taken this one and put it right before the Sith Lord.
Oh, so you mean this should have
So
been
this should have
the
been the
last episode?
opener.
This should have been the opener. The first episode should have been the third episode.
Because like they wanted to do, yeah, it should have, they wanted to do like a semi-chronological thing, but they also really wanted to open with an Ahsoka episode because I guess they
Right.
thought it was a stronger pilot.
Which
But
I
that throws the
agree,
whole thing
but
out of
yeah.
whack. But then you have the issue of like, you also wanted to end on episode 6, which I think they thought was a really strong episode to end on. It is not, and we will get to that when we get to episode 6. But what they really should have done is if they were going to do it this way, they should have opened with Life and Death. Then they should have done the other two Ahsoka episodes, Practice Makes Perfect, and whatever the hell episode 6 is called. I don't remember it off the top of my head. Then gone back and done the 3 Dooku episodes and ended with the Sith Lord. That's the order they should have put it in. I did not like that this episode was number 2, that they like mesh the chronological order up with the splitting the two characters up.
Right.
Or they could have
Could
gone, they could have alternated. They could have done Ahsoka
either
Dooku,
or,
Ahsoka
yeah.
Dooku, Ahsoka Dooku. I didn't like the release order for this, like, at all.
No, I
No.
agree. I think they should have either stuck with either or, done Ahsoka, then Dooku, Ahsoka, then Dooku, Ahsoka, then Dooku. Or they could have just done all the Ahsoka and then all the Dooku. Like that's how they
Right.
should have done. They should have just picked one and or done truly chronological. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Aside from that, what did you think overall of this episode?
I'm about to lay down some credentials.
Okay,
Let me
great.
slap some fucking credentials down really
Go for it.
fast. I own 4 copies of Dracula. 2 of them are annotated. One of them is a beautiful leather-bound volume containing other Bram Stoker works that was gifted to me as a Christmas gift. I have watched Dracula Dead and Loving It an absurd amount of times. I have seen or read a vast majority of the Dracula adaptations, including the Christopher Lee films. I fucking loved this episode because it scratched that the whole thing is just the whole visual aesthetic of it is one big Dracula reference. It's a reference to like the old films that they did, but also like just any general vibe where they have like the decrepit rundown village and it's almost got this kind of gothic air to it. So when I saw the like bits of this episode in the trailer, I was like, oh, hell yes. Hell yes, this is my jam. And of course, it's a reference because Sir Christopher Lee, who famously played Count Dooku, even more famously played Count Dracula opposite Peter Cushing, who plays Grand Moff Tarkin as Abraham Van Helsing. So, because the two were also like besties in real life. But I loved it. I also thought it was a really good look at Dooku. I was sort of concerned that the way they were going to do it is they were going to have like the Anakin problem of where they're so desperate to show, well, the Anakin in the EU problem of where everyone was so desperate to show how he becomes Darth Vader that they
Right.
forget to show his character prior to being Darth Vader. And they didn't do it. Even though Dooku almost murders Senator Dagonet at the end of this,
Right.
he does get pulled back, and we also get an understanding of why he is the way he is when he makes these choices. So I loved it. I loved everything about it. I would watch the shit out of this episode over and over and over again. I would just let it play on the monitor if I didn't need to watch other things or listen to other podcasts because it's just so beautiful and it's my kind of exact aesthetic. So I was having a ball. I thought the characters were great. I thought the episode was really well written. I thought the visual design was absolutely beautiful, and it also scratched my particular itch, which is of course for more Dracula or Dracula themed content. My cat is named Jonathan Harker. That should tell you everything you need to know about my obsession with this novel. So obviously I fucking loved this episode.
And I was gonna say this episode made me feel like this should have been the show. That's why I said, or in the last episode, I said, I kind of almost wish that this show had followed a one Jedi per season format, and we would have just gotten more episodes of Dooku, because this was interesting as fuck. Like everything that was going on. And like you said, giving backstory to this character, like he's not evil right away. Like he's not just going to be this evil guy all of a sudden. So we need to show like the growth of evil essentially in him. And he's such an interesting character because he does think things that are not necessarily evil. He's like, the government is corrupt, so this person needs to be punished. Like that's a normal like reaction to things. And like the people that are kidnapping his son, they're not evil because they just want justice for their planet being fucked up by this politician. Like, and he defends them. And it's such a good like character moment. He goes about it the wrong way, but it's
Well,
still great.
Mace tells, like in the scene in Palpatine's office in Attack of the Clones, where you're introduced to Count Dooku, where they say, I think it's Mace says, Count Dooku is a political idealist. Like, and we get to see the beginnings of that here, and it works parallel so well to Dooku Jedi Lost. Because what this is, and what I really liked about it, and why I'm like, well, maybe we don't follow the same character, but it should have been this type of story, right? It should have been the fleshing out of a character that didn't get necessarily fleshed out
Right.
so much. Is that it works really well in tandem with Jedi Lost. That if you know kind of the story of how Dooku became the way he is, what these episodes did a really good job of showing why he became the way he is. And very quickly and very succinctly, like, here's what Dooku believes. He's a political idealist who believes in the morality of the system needing to be something that's examined. And when the morality of the system and the people that are involved in the system is found to be lacking, those people need to be held accountable for their actions. That is a really interesting character and really fleshes out, we see why he's ultimately going to fall to the dark side by the time of the Clone Wars and become the way he is. But also then we can see, like in the Separatist episodes, like why he's formed the Separatist government the way that he's formed it, which is really interesting just as like a character study.
Now, we were talking about timeline earlier.
Yes.
So theoretically, is this technically the first moment in Star Wars history? Is this the earliest thing we've seen?
You're talking visual media.
Visual
So
media.
obviously we're not talking about the High Republic.
No, I don't care about books right now, but
Excluding, looking at only the visual media, excluding the mythological flashback in Rebels to Tar Vizsla. If you were going to watch everything in chronological order, Dark Side Divas or First Step style, yeah, I think so. Until the Acolyte comes out,
that's
I think this
crazy.
would be the first thing chronologically
Yeah,
that
because I
you
was
would
thinking
watch.
like young Dooku would have been before anything, really, because we don't.
Right.
Yeah, so that's just weird
Right.
to think about.
Yeah, if you were to sit down and watch this which this would be a weird episode to start with.
Right, but still, if you
Probably
were a diehard fan
probably
and you wanted to watch them, you know,
in order. Yeah, for now, this is what you'll start with
okay,
is this
interesting.
episode.
Huh.
If you're going all media, if you're doing a full canon run, you're going to start with Convergence,
No,
the High
you won't do
Republic
that. No one will do
Convergence.
that. No one's a psychopath, but
I know someone who spent over, we both know someone, we've had her on the show, who spent over a year doing, at the time, like a full canon run.
that's crazy.
And it took her, I think, like over a year to do.
That's wild. Can you tell me about some of the voice actors in
I
this
would
episode?
love to tell you about some of the voice actors for this, because oh man, every single person in this is fucking incredible. Let's start with Dooku.
Okay.
Dooku sees the return of Corey Burton. You've heard Corey Burton before. You've heard him in maybe one of his 463 acting credits on IMDb. You may have
Possibly.
also heard him as the voice of the trolley announcer at Disneyland.
Oh,
And if you go to Disneyland or you went to Disneyland, I don't know if they're still doing it, but if you go to Disneyland while the Haunted Mansion Nightmare Before Christmas skin is on, he is the ghost host for just that particular skin. This man is fucking everywhere. You've heard his voice before. We do not need to dwell on him. You know who Corey Burton is. Young Qui-Gon is being played by a gentleman named, I was going to say Michael, but it does appear to be French on IMDb. So I think it's Mikhail Richardson
oh, okay.
is how you pronounce his name.
Mikhail? You say
Mikhail?
Mikhail?
Michael?
Mikhail?
Michelle? Maybe? I
Maybe?
don't
I don't
know.
know.
I should have looked this
I'm just
up.
guessing. I'm just like, yeah, yeah.
I should have looked. We are famously terrible at pronouncing this name. Mr.
Yes.
Richardson, we are so very sorry for butchering your first name. He has 10 acting credits. 9 of those acting credits are under the Michael Richardson name. But the 10th credit, which was Anchorman 2, The legend continues, he's credited as Michael Neeson. The reason he's credited as Michael Neeson is because he is Liam Neeson's son.
Oh, I guess that would make a lot of sense.
That does make a lot of sense. So he is voicing young Qui-Gon here and
So
doing a
I
very
want
good
to.
job.
So real quick, before we get into the other people, since we're talking about him, can you tell us how old he is? This is important.
He was born in June of 1995. So he would be either
27.
26 or 27.
Right. So his father is Liam Neeson. He does the voice of young Qui-Gon in this show. He's only 27 years old. Who's to say this man could not play a young Qui-Gon Jinn in live action media in flashbacks if they feel the need to
Absolutely
ever
fucking
do
no one. I'm looking at his pictures
that?
right now and he looks just like his dad.
Perfect, right?
Like he
Like
literally just looks like
perfect.
his dad. Like just get this man to be young Qui-Gon.
And do
Like
it now while he's young is my point, before he's a full-blown adult, like to the point where you'd be like, wait a minute, he's the same age as Qui-Gon was in Phantom
young
Menace. Like this
Qui-Gon
isn't
movie,
adding.
let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, let's do it. Why not?
Well, there's three other voice actors I want to talk about.
Okay.
Senator Dagonet is being played by Mark Rolston. Mark Rolston is most famous for The Shawshank Redemption, in which he plays Boggs Diamond, Aliens, in which he plays Private Drake, and Rush Hour, in which he plays Agent Russ. Those are the three that popped up immediately on IMDb. He also has had a very storied career. He's 179 credits on IMDb. He also does a lot of voice work in the Spider-Man game that came out a couple of years ago. He's Norman Osborn. He's just been in a lot of things. The other two, so the son, Senator's son, is being voiced by Josh Keaton. I'm going to list off some things that Josh Keaton has been in, Bradley,
Okay.
and we're going to see if you recognize any of them. He's in Young Justice. He's in Arcane. I know him from two separate things. He was in Voltron Legendary Defender as Shiro, and I most know him as the voice of King Anduin Ren, I can't remember. I think it's Ren. He's King Anduin Ren in the Warcraft series. But there's one particular credit of his that's upcoming that I need to mention. He is the voice of Rezarin, one of the antagonists of the upcoming Dragon Age Absolution Netflix series. You have no idea what this is. This is for very specific members of our audience.
Okay, I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Dragon Age is doing a new animated series, and Josh Keaton is a Tevinter Magister, evil mage, bad mage. He's a bad guy in this. That's all you need to know.
Cool.
And then finally, the village elder is being portrayed by Vanessa Marshall. Do you recognize the name Vanessa Marshall?
That sounds like a Star Wars Rebels reference.
It almost certainly is. She's the voice of Hera fucking Syndulla.
Ah, okay. I thought I recognized the name somewhere.
I know you recognize the name because we talked about this earlier.
Right.
She's the voice of Hera Syndulla in Rebels in the Bad Batch.
Nice.
Another very prolific voice actor. Also in Young Justice, Star Trek Lower Decks, Rick and Morty. She's in Mass Effect. She's in Harley Quinn as the voice of Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
She's good. She's really, really good. That's who all of our voice actors. So again, there's only 5.
Right.
Well,
Well,
they
what's
don't do a
good that
whole
they're
lot
doing
of
that.
like talking in these
Right.
episodes, but absolutely banger voice cast from beginning to end.
Oh, also, I'm randomly looking at IMDb's trivia section. You know how sometimes they randomly have that stuff.
Sometimes they throw it in there.
So someone said that in this episode, Qui-Gon refers to Dooku as master, indicating he's still Dooku's apprentice. However, he lacks the single hair braid that signifies a Padawan. But don't they always just call people who are above them master regardless?
Yeah,
Like
but it's
Master
sort of
Yoda,
it's
Master
kind of
Qui-Gon.
implied if you have the yeah, they generally.
I mean, I'm just trying to explain away the not having the braid, but could that be true? Or is he a knight here, or
It's
is he a
possible
Padawan?
he might be a knight. I would have to rewatch the episode. I don't think so. I think that he is supposed to still be a Padawan in this.
But doesn't Anakin also call Obi-Wan master, even though he's a Jedi Knight? And
I
you know
think
what I mean?
I think that's a.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like
I have nothing for this. They just fucked this up.
Okay. I just thought I'd throw that out there. It's just a fun little, I guess, goof. Oh, and then it says books and video games aside, this is canonically before every other Star Wars movie and television series.
So I
Look,
was correct.
yeah, you were. Look at that. We are just on top of this stuff, and we didn't even look at that trivia section before. So
ordinarily, I would rationalize like things away. You know what? I can't explain this, and this is just because like it might be just a tradition thing. It's maybe not a requirement, and because Dooku is such a like Maverick, and we know Qui-Gon will eventually grow to be a Maverick, then it makes sense for them to be like, nah, the Padawan braid's kind of stupid, actually.
Right, right.
We're not going to do that. Yeah, I could see them. I could see them being like, nah, if you're going to be my Padawan, we're not going to do this. And
Absolutely.
Qui-Gon being like, damn, I am so okay with this. Well, that's about all I have to say about that episode. Bradley, do you have any final thoughts on the episode?
No, it was really fun overall. I want to know, I really like I just want to say I really like the giant robot randomly.
I also love the giant robot.
Just another load lifting robot with personality for no reason. Like he's barely in it, but he has just enough personality. Like it's great.
Yeah, I'm really happy with the episode overall. Like I said, this was my favorite one to watch. It's
Hmm.
not the one that I think is the best episode out of them, but it is my favorite to watch. Just it makes my little gothic horror loving heart extremely happy, and that's really all that it needed to do.
Nice.
All right. Well, Bradley, go ahead and run the socials, and we will be back later on with episode 3 as we continue to fill what is hopefully a set gap this time. Let's not do what Andor did and push it back and leave us out in the cold, okay?
Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze. Did Charles fuck something up? Send us a message at goldsquadrongaze@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Gold Squad Gaze. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gaze. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gaze, where we post the podcast as well as exclusive content. Please join us next week and every week for more of Gold Squadron Gaze.